satisfying to be on the top end of a race with
It means everything to me. It's been a goal since 2018. Since then it's been my goal to come here and point my finger to the sky.
July 2019, the Tour de France, Stage 13, an individual time trial through the streets of Poel. Wout van Aert is flying. He's already won a stage at this tour. He's already shown the entire cycling world that he belongs here. He's tucked low on his time trial bike, fully committed to the descent. And then, in a fraction of a second, everything changes.
And this is how it happened. Oh, and he's gone into the barrier. You worry for Wout van Aert here. You really worry for Wout van Aert here.
His leg catches a metal crowd barrier at the side of the road. He goes down hard. The wound is catastrophic, so deep that he's rushed into surgery immediately. And when the surgeons operate, they make a mistake. One of his tendons goes unrepaired. The damage is worse than anyone initially realized. Nobody knows if he'll race again. Nobody knows if, at 24 years old, one of the most exciting cyclists on the planet is already finished. This is the story of Wout van Aert, a man who came from nothing, built himself into a world champion, had everything nearly ripped away, and came back to win a race he had been promising to win for someone else for 8 years. To understand Wout van Aert, you need to understand where he comes from. Herentals, a small town in the Flemish province of Antwerp, Belgium. Cycling is practically in the air there. It's woven into the culture, the roads, the identity of an entire region. But Van Aert's family had no racing background whatsoever. No famous relatives, no cycling tradition at home. Just a kid who fell in love with bikes. He gravitated towards cyclocross almost naturally. If you've never watched it, picture this. A race that lasts about an hour. Run through mud, sand, grass, and steep barriers that you either jump over or carry your bike across. It's chaos, it's brutally physical, and it rewards a very specific kind of athlete, someone with explosive power, elite bike handling, and a complete refusal to back down when things get uncomfortable. For a kid from Herentals, it was a perfect fit. Van Aert first made a serious impression during the 2011 to 2012 season, winning the junior race at Cyclocross World. By 2013, he had turned professional, winning the U23 Super Prestige and finishing second overall in the U23 World Cup. He was climbing the ranks faster than almost anyone expected. At the start of the 2014 to 2015 season, he was still technically classified as a junior, but was already lining up against the elite men and shocking them. He beat the legendary Sven Nys at Koppenberg Cross and then went on to win 12 more races that same season. This was not a promising junior finding his feet. This was a young man announcing himself to the entire sport. January 2016, Van Aert wins his first elite cyclocross world championship. He stands on the top step of the podium in the rainbow jersey, 21 years old. Then he does it again in 2017, and again in 2018. 3 consecutive world championship titles. That is not something you stumble into. That is a dynasty. That is years of obsessive, relentless pursuit of perfection in one of the most physically demanding disciplines in cycling. And what made it even more compelling was that he was never doing it unopposed, because chasing him every single race, every single winter, was Mathieu van der Poel, born just 4 months apart. Van Aert's grinding, sustained power against van der Poel's extraordinary explosiveness. The rivalry captivated audiences everywhere and elevated cyclocross to a mainstream talking point the sport had never quite had before. Between 2015 and 2023, they shared 8 cyclocross world titles between them, with van der Poel edging the count 5-3. But numbers don't tell the full story. These weren't comfortable victories. Every result carried the weight of the other man's name attached to it. Every win felt like it could have gone the other way. And here's what's fascinating about that period. Van Aert could have stayed there forever. He was the best, or one of the top 2, in an entire discipline. He could have made a comfortable career winning cyclocross races every winter, collecting spring classics results, and been celebrated as one of the greats of his era. But he wanted the road. He wanted the biggest races on the planet, and that hunger was about to take him somewhere extraordinary and somewhere devastating. April 2018, Paris-Roubaix, the hell of the north. 257 kilometers of roads through northern France, the most savage one-day race on the calendar.
Where it's more of a savage race where everybody dies at some point. So I was looking.
Wout van Aert is riding it for the very first time, still primarily a cyclocross rider making his mark in spring classics. But that day, something happened that had nothing to do with cycling results. Van Aert's teammate Michael Goolaerts suffered a cardiac arrest mid-race and was rushed to hospital. He died later that day. A 23-year-old teammate, a friend, gone on the roads of the race Van Aert had just made his debut in. It is impossible to fully describe what that does to a person, what it does to an entire team, what it does to a young rider still figuring out who he is and what he wants from the sport. Van Aert has spoken about it clearly.
It's been a goal since 2018 when I first did this race. It's now 8 years ago, and in that race I lost a teammate, Michael Goolaerts. Ever since then, it's been my goal to come here and
He carried that promise with him everywhere. Every time he lined up at Paris-Roubaix, Michael Goolaerts was there with him. That race would never be just a race again. Back to July 2019, the Tour de France time trial. We're back where we started this story. Van Aert's leg catches a roadside barrier. The injury is immediate and severe. His season ends on the spot. He later described the crash as potentially career-ending, made worse by a surgical mistake that left one of his tendons unrepaired. For months, nobody could say with certainty whether he would recover in time for cyclocross season, let alone the spring classics the following year. Those months of rehabilitation were some of the hardest of his life. He was at the peak of his powers, winning Tour de France stages, and suddenly he was in a hospital room, watching the season move on without him. But he came back, first in cyclocross in December 2019, finishing 5th on his return, then winning a race in early 2020 in Lille, and then making his return to road racing at Omloop Het Nieuwsblad. Most people would have needed more time. Van Aert just needed a race. August 2020, the first rescheduled World Tour race after the COVID pandemic shutdown. Strade Bianche, one of the most beautiful and brutal one-day races in the world, run across the white gravel roads of Tuscany. With 13 kilometers remaining, Van Aert attacks. Solo. He builds the gap, he holds it, he extends it, and he crosses the finish line completely alone. His first monument victory in his first major race back after the injury that had threatened everything. A man who spent months in a hospital not knowing if his career was over had just ridden one of cycling's greatest races faster than every other person on earth. He wasn't done. That same season he won Milan-San Remo, the Belgian time trial championship, and 2 stages at the Tour de France. Each of those in isolation would represent a career highlight. Together, in a single season, they were extraordinary. In 2021, he became the first rider since Bernard Hinault in 1979 to win a mountain stage, an individual time trial, and a bunch sprint in a single Tour de France. A climber, a time trialist, a pure sprinter, all in one race, all in the same body. By 2022, he had won 3 stages at the Tour de France and the green jersey, all while playing a central role in supporting Jonas Vingegaard's overall victory. Media around the world were calling him one of the most complete cyclists of his generation. But sport is not linear, and Wout van Aert was about to learn that lesson again, painfully. In 2024, a severe crash on stage 16 of the Vuelta a España ended his season. He had been on course to win the green jersey. That was his second serious crash of the year alone. Earlier in the spring, he had also gone down at Dwars door Vlaanderen, missing 2 months of racing. 2 bad crashes in 1 year would shake anyone. Recovery, surgery, rehab, the slow grinding process of rebuilding. And heading into 2025, the questions got louder. Was something different now? Had the crashes taken something from him? Not just physically, but in terms of confidence, hunger, belief. There were observers who wrote pieces genuinely questioning whether Van Aert had lost something, whether the fearlessness that had defined him was gone. Van Aert quietly kept working. April 12, 2026. Paris-Roubaix, his 8th attempt at this race. The race where his teammate died, the race where punctures had ended his chances before, the race he had never won and had been promising to win for someone else for 8 years. Coming in, his form was pointing upward, 3rd at Milan-San Remo, 2nd at Dwars door Vlaanderen, 4th at the Tour of Flanders. Not dominant, but building, patient, ready. On the cobbles, he and Tadej Pogačar broke clear together, the two best one-day riders in the world, side by side, with the velodrome waiting at the end. Neither could shake the other. It came down to a sprint, and Van Aert, in the final meters, was stronger. Pogačar, the 4-time Tour de France winner, could only say afterwards,
with Wout, there was not much freshness in the legs to really maybe had a chance to drop him on the covers. I think was I saw quite fast that will be mission impossible, and then give my best in the sprint, but he's.
And then Van Aert stood in the velodrome, barely able to speak, and pointed his finger to the sky. He also announced he would be sending his winner's bouquet, the traditional flowers given to the Paris-Roubaix champion, to Michael's family. Days later, it was confirmed they had arrived, along with an urn shaped like a cobblestone. That is what sport can be, at its absolute best. Not just a result, not just a trophy, a promise kept, a life honored, an 8-year journey ending exactly the way it was supposed to. Wout van Aert's story is one of the great stories in modern cycling, a boy from Herentals with no cycling family, a cyclocross champion who taught himself to be a road racer, a man whose career nearly ended on a French street corner, who came back to ride some of the most memorable races the sport has seen. His teammate Edoardo Affini put it simply,
Ik denk onze kopman Wout is wel in orde en hij heeft wel een goede prestatie geleverd.
And Tadej Pogačar, the man he beat, was the first to congratulate him in the Roubaix velodrome. Wout deserves this for how he always comes back from every setback. He never gives up. He should be a hero for many young kids. He got back up every time. He kept the promise. And on a cold April afternoon in northern France, he finally pointed to the sky. This one was for Michael,